I'll never forget his face. He was sitting in the gallery, third row, left side, watching me, watching the jury, watching my life fall apart in real time. His name was Dennis Kowalski, and he was the reason I was on trial for arson. Not because he'd reported me, not because he'd seen me commit a crime, but because he committed the crime. And he was there, in that courtroom, watching me take the fall for it. I just didn't know it yet. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the night that destroyed my life. It was October 15th, a Tuesday. I was 26 years old, working as a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property management company. We handled warehouses, office buildings, industrial facilities across the metro area. That night, I'd been called out to one of our warehouses around 9 p.m. The tenant had reported a malfunctioning security system. I drove out there, checked the panel, found a loose wire, fixed it. I was there maybe 30 minutes. I logged the service call, locked up, drove home, watched TV, went to bed. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. It was my boss. "Turn on the news," he said. His voice was shaking. The warehouse was on fire. Massive flames, 3-alarm blaze. Fire crews had been fighting it for 2 hours. The building was a total loss. My first thought was, thank God no one was inside. My second thought was about all the tenants' inventory. Years of their business gone. My third thought should have been, I need a lawyer. But I didn't think that because I was innocent, and I believed the justice system protected innocent people. I was wrong. The fire marshal's investigation concluded it was arson, deliberately set, multiple points of origin, accelerant used. Someone had wanted that building to burn. And I was the last person logged in the facility before the fire started. The police came to my apartment 6 days later. 2 detectives, very polite at first. "We just need to ask you some routine questions about the warehouse fire." I let them in because I was innocent, because I had nothing to hide. They asked me about the service call. I told them everything. When I arrived, what I did, how long I was there, when I left. "Did you see anyone else in the area?" I said, "Just one guy. He was getting into a truck when I pulled up. We made eye contact but didn't talk. I figured he was with the tenant or another contractor." "Can you describe him?" I did my best. Middle-aged, average height, dark hair, nothing distinctive. I hadn't really paid attention. "Did you notice what kind of truck?" I said, "Red pickup, maybe a Ford, I'm not sure." They asked a few more questions. Then they asked if I'd be willing to come down to the station to give a formal statement. I said yes, because I was helping with an investigation, because I was innocent. At the station, they read me my Miranda rights. "Just a formality," they said. They took my fingerprints for elimination purposes. They asked the same questions 3 different ways, looking for inconsistencies that weren't there. And then they arrested me.
"You have the right to remain silent." The words sounded distant, unreal, like they were being spoken in another language. I was being charged with first-degree arson, intentional destruction of property. If convicted, I could face up to 20 years. I couldn't afford a private attorney. I got a public defender. Nice guy, overworked, handling 60 cases simultaneously. The evidence against me seemed overwhelming. My fingerprints were at the scene. Of course they were. I'd been there doing a service call. My truck was spotted in the area. Yes, because I drove there for work. Security footage showed me entering the building at 9:07 and leaving at 9:34. Exactly what I'd told them. But here's where it got worse. The fire marshal estimated the fire started around 10:30 p.m., an hour after I'd left. But the accelerant, the gasoline used to start the fire, was poured in multiple locations, a kind of job that takes planning, preparation, time. The prosecution's theory? I'd done a dry run during my service call, scouted the locations, unlocked a back door, then returned later to actually set the fire. Except I didn't. I went home. I had no alibi because I lived alone and was asleep by 11. My public defender tried to build a defense. We had my GPS data from my truck showing I went straight home. We had my cell phone pinging off towers near my apartment all night. But the prosecution had something better. They had a witness. Dennis Kowalski, age 48, construction foreman, worked on a project near the warehouse, solid citizen, no criminal record, married with 3 kids. And he testified that he'd seen me at the warehouse around 10:15 p.m., an hour and a half after I'd supposedly left. He said he was driving home from a late meeting, took a shortcut past the industrial area, saw a truck that looked like mine in the warehouse parking lot, saw someone matching my description carrying something into the building. He even identified my truck from photos, said he remembered it because of a distinctive dent in the rear bumper. I sat in that courtroom listening to him lie, watching him describe things that never happened, and the jury believed him. Why wouldn't they? He had no reason to lie. He didn't know me. He wasn't connected to the case. He was just a good Samaritan trying to help the police solve a crime. My lawyer tried to poke holes in his testimony. The lighting wasn't great in that area. How could he be sure it was me? The timeline was tight. Why didn't he report this immediately? Dennis had an answer for everything. I saw what I saw. I didn't think much of it until I heard about the fire the next day. Then I knew I had to come forward. The prosecution loved him. They built their entire case around his testimony. And there was one more piece of evidence, one more nail in my coffin. A gas can, found in a dumpster 3 blocks from my apartment, wiped clean of prints, but with trace amounts of the same accelerant used in the fire. Anonymous tip led police to it. Called in the day after the fire. Male voice, wouldn't give his name. My lawyer argued it was planted evidence, that anyone could have put it there, that it proved nothing. The jury didn't see it that way. 3 hours of deliberation, guilty on all counts. 15 years in prison. The judge said I'd shown calculated maliciousness and no remorse. He said I'd endangered the lives of firefighters, that I deserved every year of that sentence. I looked at my mother in the gallery. She was crying. She knew I was innocent, but she couldn't prove it. No one could. And across the courtroom, sitting in the 3rd row, I saw Dennis Kowalski. He was leaving, walking out, going home to his family. I didn't know it then, but he was the man I'd seen getting into that red pickup truck the night of the fire. The man I'd made eye contact with. The man who'd still been at the warehouse when I arrived for my service call. Because he was preparing to burn it down. And he'd just watched me get convicted for his crime.
Prison changes you. It has to. If it didn't, you wouldn't survive. I was sent to a medium security facility 3 hours from my hometown. My mom visited once a month. That's all she could afford, with gas and time off work. I spent the first year in shock, waiting for someone to realize the mistake, for new evidence to surface, for justice to happen. It didn't, so I got to work. I read everything I could about wrongful convictions, about appeals, about overturning verdicts. The prison library became my law school. I filed my first appeal after 18 months. argued ineffective counsel, questioned the witness testimony, challenged the anonymous tip about the gas can. Denied. The court said it wasn't enough to overcome the eyewitness testimony. I filed a second appeal 2 years later. New evidence, cell tower data that definitively placed me at my apartment during the time Dennis claimed to see me at the warehouse. Denied. The court said it wasn't enough to overcome the eyewitness testimony. I filed a third appeal, a fourth, a fifth, all denied. You know what happens when you keep filing appeals? People stop taking you seriously. Guards, other inmates, even your own family starts to wonder if maybe there's something you're not telling them. My mother never doubted me, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes during visits, the grief of watching her son waste away for a crime he didn't commit. I was 33 years old. I'd been in prison for 7 years. I'd missed my sister's wedding, my nephew's birth, my father's funeral. They wouldn't let me attend, said I was a flight risk. And then I got a letter, not from a lawyer, not from my family, from a woman I'd never met. Her name was Patricia Kowalski, Dennis's wife. The letter said, "I think my husband knows something about your case. He's sick, lung cancer, stage 4. He's been having nightmares, saying things. I think you should know." She included a phone number. I called it at night, prison phone, collect. She accepted the charges. I said, "Tell me." She took a breath. Then, "Dennis has been different since your trial. Drinking more, sleeping less. He's been to 3 different therapists. None of them can help him." I said, "What's he saying?" She said, "He wakes up screaming, says he's burning, says he's sorry. And last week when the doctor told him he had maybe 3 months left, he said something I'll never forget." She paused. He said, "At least I'll die free. That kid won't." My blood ran cold. She said, "I've been married to Dennis for 26 years. I know when he's hiding something. And I think he's been hiding this." I called my public defender. By then, I'd been assigned a new one, my third. I told him about the letter, about Patricia. He said it wasn't enough. Hearsay from a spouse, no proof, no confession. But Patricia wasn't done. She started recording Dennis at night, when he'd wake up from nightmares, when he'd been drinking, when his guard was down. And on one of those recordings, Dennis said something that changed everything. He said, "I told them it was that maintenance kid. I made the whole thing up. I described his truck. I said I saw him when I knew he was gone. And they believed me. They believed everything." Patricia sent the recording to my lawyer, to the prosecutor, to the Innocence Project organization I'd been trying to contact for years. Suddenly, people were listening.
Dennis Kowalski died 4 months after Patricia sent that recording. He never made a formal confession, never signed anything. Just those late-night ramblings captured on his wife's phone. But it was enough to trigger a new investigation. The police, different detectives this time, reopened the case. They interviewed Patricia, reviewed the original evidence with fresh eyes. And they found things. Dennis had worked construction on that same warehouse 2 years before the fire. He had intimate knowledge of the building layout. He had access. His financial records showed he'd been in debt, serious debt. The warehouse tenant owed his construction company $40,000 for unpaid work. There'd been a lawsuit. The tenant was winning. 2 months after the fire, after I'd been arrested, Dennis paid off all his debts, told his family he'd gotten a settlement from an insurance claim. But there was no insurance claim, just a sudden influx of cash. The fire had destroyed all the evidence of the tenant's financial records, including the pending lawsuit against Dennis's company. He'd burned the warehouse to hide his fraud, and he'd framed me to cover his tracks. The police found the anonymous tip about the gas can had come from a burner phone, purchased the day after the fire from a store 3 blocks from Dennis's workplace. They matched the voice on the tip recording to Dennis. Not a perfect match. He'd tried to disguise it, but close enough. And they found the red pickup truck, sold years ago to a junkyard, but the record showed it belonged to Dennis's construction company. The same truck I'd seen the night of the fire. I was exonerated 9 years and 4 months after my conviction. 9 years, 4 months, 12 days. The judge who'd sentenced me apologized, said the system had failed me, offered his sympathy. I didn't want his sympathy. I wanted my life back. The state paid me compensation. Not enough, never enough, but I didn't fight it. I just wanted out. Patricia came to my release hearing. She was crying. She apologized on behalf of her husband, said she had no idea until the nightmares started. I believe her. Some people are very good at hiding who they really are. I asked her why Dennis did it, why me specifically. She said, "You were convenient. You were there, you had access, and you were young and alone. No resources to fight back. He thought you'd just take a plea deal. He never expected you to go to trial. And when you did, he couldn't back out. He was trapped in his own lie. So he committed to it, testified against me, watched me get convicted, and then went home and tried to forget. But he couldn't forget. The nightmares wouldn't let him. I'm 35 now. I've been out for 2 years. I work as a legal advocate for other wrongfully convicted people. I tell my story. I help people navigate the appeals process. I can't give them back their lost years, but I can give them hope. And sometimes that's enough. People ask me if I'm angry, if I hate Dennis Kowalski, if I wish I could have confronted him before he died. Honestly, I don't know. I'm angry at the system that took his word over the evidence, that ignored the gaps in his testimony, that was so eager to close the case that they didn't look deeper. I'm angry that I lost 9 years, that my mother spent those years visiting her innocent son in prison, that I missed everything. But Dennis, he was already punishing himself. The nightmares, the guilt, the slow death from cancer. Patricia said at the end he was begging for forgiveness. I don't know if I forgive him. I don't know if I ever will. But I'm free now. And he's not. Not anymore. So here's my question for you. Do you trust the justice system to protect the innocent? Have you or someone you know been falsely accused? And if someone confesses to a crime years later, is that justice, or is it too little too late? Leave a comment. Share your thoughts, because this happens more often than you think. And every wrongful conviction is someone's entire life destroyed by a lie. Thank you for watching. If my story helped you understand the reality of false accusations, please share it. Someone out there might need to hear it. Stay safe, stay skeptical, and never assume the system will protect you just because you're innocent. It won't. You have to fight for yourself every single day.